is a fascinating thing that's going on here, because he's coming out and saying they're not paying me enough, right? That's what he's coming out. And by the way, looked into it. Disclosed purse for his last fight against Dan Hooker. Disclosed purse. Now we know about that, but disclosed purse for Dustin Poirier, just for the facts. I'm trying to get the facts here. 150 to show, 150 to win. That's 300 that he obviously got because he won the fight. 150 to show for Dustin Poirier. I think a lot of people would agree that, he's earned more than that. But here's the fascinating thing about all this, DC. The fascinating thing is, usually when athletes, even in our sport, Masvidal, John Jones, talk about money, talk about wanting more, usually what happens is the fans don't back the fighter. Mm-hmm. Come on, man. Don't back up. You're scared, this and that. With Dustin, when I reported this on multiple days, it was overwhelming in terms of support for him. Pay the man. Support you, Dustin. Do what you got to do. We got your back. This is the fight. And then what happens late Sunday? Tony Ferguson comes out.
Yeah.
Says, I support you. That's a big deal. I think it speaks to the respect that Dustin has developed and earned from the community. The MMA fans respect this man and feel like he has earned it. We don't know the numbers. He doesn't want to talk about the numbers. UFC isn't talking about the numbers. But just the fact that they are backing him blindly like this, I think is a pretty cool thing to see.
Well, you've watched him from the very beginning, right? Remember Dustin Poirier in WEC? Remember Dustin Poirier in his first UFC fight when he was a massive underdog against a guy. I can't remember the guy's name. It was a hot prospect. Dustin's first UFC fight.
Josh Grisby,
right? Remember Josh Grisby was supposed to be the man. Dustin beat him up, and then you see his ups, you see his downs. You saw him become a champion. You saw him lose to Khabib. You see him come back and beat Dan Hooker in the way that he did. You know what you get when you get a Dustin Poirier fight, right? You know it's going to deliver. So I think it's a matter of what he wants. This is a guy that's a former champion, and for a long time, Ariel, making $300,000 was usually what challengers got paid for titles. So he's making fair money, I believe, decent money. But I think if I had to guess, it would be more about not win, show. It'd be more about what am I making, right? I'm certain if they give Dustin $400,000, $500,000 flat, he'll be fine with that, right? I just think that a lot of guys now, or a little bit, they might be a little bit like done with the win and show. And I think that might be what you get with Dustin.
It looked like he was going to kiss his hand.
I know. I think Colby went to kiss his hand or something. He went to kiss the ring. He's like, whoa, steady on, Colbs.
I think Colby went to go dap him up because Colby's retarded.
No, the president's not going to fucking dap you up.
I know, but if you look at what he did, he held his hand up here and the president went to go shake it. So he met him in the middle. It was awkward and bizarre. Yeah, I mean, it's awkward,
That's a confidence booster, though, for Colby Covington coming into this one this weekend. It really is. He's a big Trump supporter. He's a big fan of the man himself. That's huge. It is.
Tyron hates Trump, so I'm sure it's a confidence booster for Tyron as well, and probably more so for Tyron than Colby, because I don't know how much Colby really loves Trump. Colby's not into politics. Colby's into trolling people, and I think that's why he wears that hat. Tyron is into Black Lives Matter movement, anti-racism. He's been a very big...
Why do you think that is?
Well, he's a rapper.
Hey, he's into Black Lives Matter. Well, of course he is. He's an
I'm just saying,
African-American.
that's not fake, I don't think. So I'm saying...
No, it's not.
He's not
lying. He's not saying, hey, Black Lives Matter, psych. It's a joke. No, of course he is.
No, the point I'm making is, though, that it's real emotion from Tyron, whereas I don't know if it's real emotion for Colby. So if there's a confidence booster there, I think Tyron's going to see that and be like, yeah, fuck you. Trump?
I think it's real on both sides, and it's just going to make for an even better fight, and it just hypes it up even more.
If you're Colby Covington, you have three main focuses in this fight. You've got to keep Tyron Woodley working. You've got to keep him from being able to set up his shots. And you've got to wear him out over the distance to make your odds of getting the finish or the decision better after the championship rounds. Tyron Woodley he's a patient fighter with very, very precise striking. He's very powerful. He knows that. He also knows that if he is under pressure, he's got a power double off the fence, which... we don't see a lot, to be honest. We saw it in the Condit fight, because Condit's very good at putting people under pressure, at throwing long combinations of strikes. We know that Colby Covington does that as well. We know Covington's got a really good, mauling, high-pressure style. The difference with Carlos Condit and with Colby Covington is that Covington's got the wrestling to back up that high pace. Condit, on the other hand, he's dangerous once you hit the floor. So Tyron Woodley always knew that he had that blast double against Carlos Condit that could take away some of that pressure, but then he's dealing with what he's facing on the floor, in which case then his black belt and his strength comes into play. With Colby Covington, if he's under pressure and he engages in the wrestling, it doesn't negate the pressure. It just changes the pressure from being hit to being wrestled. And both of these things are things that Tyron Woodley wants to minimize. Woodley's very good at fighting someone that is a specialist. If he's fighting Damian Maia, he knows what Damian Maia wants to do. And if the spectrum of mixed martial arts is in front of us, we've got striking at one end and we've got grappling at the other. If you're a grappling specialist, Woodley's got the wrestling and the strength and conditioning to shut that down. If you're a striker, Woodley's got the strength and the conditioning and the power, obviously, to shut that down. If you sit somewhere between those two facets on that spectrum, which is exactly where Colby Covington sits, that's when you become problematic for Tyron Woodley, because you force Woodley to constantly control the fight, and it's controlling the fight which allows him his rest. If he can't control the fight against Colby Covington, then he's reactive, he's wearing himself out, being defensive instead of being offensive, and he doesn't come into fights with an offensive mindset. He did a little bit earlier in his career, but as he's aged, as he's settled into his game, and the truth is, as the competition's gotten better, he's become more railroaded into his style. Now, the best version that we've seen of Tyron Woodley recently was against Darren Till, because he did what we expected him to do. He backed up against the fence, he waited for the opportunity, and then he cracks you with that powerful right hand. If it doesn't knock you out, it's enough to daze you and enough to allow him to follow up. So the first line of defense for Tyron Woodley is that power right.
How about for Kazmat? Listen, if you're Gerald Meerschaert and you find out that they double booked your opponent because they think he's going to breeze by you to get to Damian Maia, you know how offensive that is? Have we ever heard of this ever in the UFC happening? Ever?
No.
You know how fucking insulting that is? And this ain't a cakewalk for Kazmat at all. It ain't a cakewalk. This is his toughest fight. He hasn't fought the best opponents. I'm a fan of his, and I heard inside that Sweden training camp with the rest of the boys, with Gustafsson and them, they say he is an absolute fucking monster. I've heard all sorts of war stories. I heard he's the best, most talented guy to come out of that camp they've ever had. All right, great, grand, wonderful. But to book a double opponent, go, hey, if you get past Meerschaert, you're fighting Damian Maia. You know how insulting that is as a fighter? Like, what the fuck? What the fuck? Now, stylistically, for Kazmat, it's a great matchup. It's a great matchup. He should get by Meerschaert, but still, it's his toughest fight to date. He's a minus 440. He's the biggest favorite on the card up besides Bektic, right?
Bektic, yeah.
Yep, minus 470, which is a huge favorite in mixed martial arts.